Right Up Meridian, baby.
All right, folks, welcome back to Right Up Meridian podcast. Tony's with me, Scott here. It's the dog days of summer, not a ton to talk about, but we keep the content rolling as we get ready for, pretty soon we'll have the schedule release here, and then we'll finally have some stuff to talk about. Before we get going, shout out to our sponsor of the entire home network, that's Home Field Apparel. If you have not checked it out, they have hats, dad hats. Great for grilling, great for hanging out, great for mowing, just great for being a dad or mom. I mean, I think we can open up to everybody, but they're called the dad hats. I'm looking at it now. They have a slippery rock hat, which I will have to try out. I have an odd head size. I'm a little bit big and got a big forehead, and so not all the hats work, but I'm willing to give it a shot because they have the great logos. It's kind of the quality of the logos you've come to know and love with Home Field Apparel. So check them out. Use promo code HOME from the Home Network for 15% off your first purchase. Tony, good to have you back, man. It's been a while. I was driving through the west part of the country, drove out to like Mount Rushmore and Devil's Tower, came back, but I'm back and ready to rock and roll.
You're back, and not a lot happened while you're gone. So you picked a nice time to go out.
No, it's definitely a dead period for the NBA, and it's funny because like you get the finals, and it's like just. You like, oh my God, we're right into like draft prep and then the draft and then like right into free agency. And then it just like falls off a cliff. Like the NBA is getting really close to being like 10 and a half months. But after this free agency period goes, like it becomes just a nice dead period. So we will start potting more as we get along, but it's going to be kind of hit and miss between here and there. There isn't much to talk about, but yeah, it's definitely, this is the dead period for the NBA.
100%. Yeah, I subscribed to Mark Stein, and his email today was getting through the dog days of NBA summer, where there's just not a lot happening. Like you said, you get so much happening at once, or just simultaneously, and then it's just kind of like, you're itching now to get some content or some NBA fix. So that's what
I'm ready to get the schedule. Yeah, that's what we're here for. I'm ready to get the schedule released, just so we can see again how few national games the Pacers get, which is always annoying. I know we're not going to get a Christmas game. We're not going to get a big opening night game, but it's annoying when they release a schedule and then you're like, hey, we're on TNT once. That's awesome.
And then it gets flexed out later in the year.
Yeah, I know. If we get it like in November or December, we get it. But then a lot of times, have we ever played on Christmas? I think we did back in the Paul George days, maybe one of those years.
Ooh, I don't know. I can't think of a time when we did.
Yeah, it's not going to happen again this year. It's kind of annoying. But so the one topic that I have to talk about, and it's really not, it's more just, scuttlebutt out there, but there was a bit of, some talk, I think it was Indy Star even talked about it, like, possibly, the Pacers looking at Pascal Siakam, who I will pull it up here in a second. He is in like 1 year left of his deal. I think it's like $37 million. You would have to trade for him. I played around a little bit on the NBA trade machine, and basically, if we assume, and I think it's fair to assume, like Halliburton's off the table, that would be bananas if the Pacers did that. Like I think Halliburton, Mathurin, I think those guys and our draft picks are off the table. If we're going to assume that, which I think is a fair assumption for any discussion, you really come down to like it's Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. And really it has to be both of them for the salaries to work. If you do one of them, it's like you're doing one plus, like you need like even like TJ McConnell, like you need like 5 or 6 other dudes. Like it's a lot of people to get that salary. So it's basically you're looking at Miles Turner and Hield for Siakam. Before I just throw out what were your thoughts when you saw that? Like other ways you could work that deal, and then do you think it's something that would make any sense from the Pacers?
Yeah, when I saw it, I thought it was kind of odd based on the timing of when it came out, because like the Pacers had just drafted Walker, they had just signed Toppin, and it seemed like Siakam was kind of somebody that would play that position. So all of a sudden it was like, well, crap, are they going to have like a backlog at the 4 spot? They kind of brought Toppin in, I assumed, to start and let Walker kind of get his feet wet just based on what Carlisle does with rookies. So then I was like, well, if you go get Siakam, then you've got Toppin, who then kind of goes back into a role where he was kind of in New York, where he's barely used, and that signing kind of seems weird. So it all kind of seemed odd to me just based on the fit. And then, I was thinking like, if they did somehow make this deal, like you got to get him to agree he's going to extend. Because if you gave up assets for a 1-year rental of Pascal Siakam, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. So to me, I thought it was kind of odd. I didn't love or hate it. I was like more so kind of confused on the fit and what that might look like. So those are kind of my initial thoughts when I saw those rumors kind of floating around.
Yeah, I on one hand, like I like the idea of the Pacers being like, we're going to go for it. It'd be a very un-Pacers like move. And it does, you know, that's kind of cool. Like, I think there comes a point where if you're the Pacers, you've got to say, we're going all in. I'm not sure if this is the move. Although, I mean, you look at it like the other way to look at it too is like Turner and Hield are both, you know, Turner's got 2 years left. Hield's got 1 year left. You know, you're kind of trading a rental for a rental. If you look at Hield as a rental, I like all of that. You know, and if you think like Ben Shepherd is going to take maybe the Buddy Hield shooting spot, and then, you know, maybe Siakam could play the role Miles Turner is playing. I like those things, but I'm like you, man. I'm not sure that was the right pick. I think Siakam's a good player. I'm not sure he's the one to get you over that hump. And as I look at it, like I know we said this a couple of times on this podcast, like I think the Pacers are in a really nice spot where they have a lot of young talent. And it does feel like give them a little bit of time to coalesce and kind of like, let's see how it goes. And I'm not sure at some point you're going to have to say, okay, we probably need to get one more, like, unless Mathurin turns into that or Walker turns into that, like, you know, Halliburton's going to need one more like elite level player to get them over. If they're going to start talking about, you know, Eastern Conference finals and finals runs, they're going to need that. But I'm not sure this team's ready for it right now. Like, even if you were able to get like Pascal Siakam and he becomes a, you know, first team all NBA type player, like really steps up a level, I'm not sure if the team is currently constructed ready to make a run at the finals. So it feels like it'll be premature, a little bit too early, and you'd probably be like blowing your dry powder like a little bit ahead of when you should be.
Yeah, honestly, when I think of teams that like could do that, I think back to that Raptors team that won the finals that kind of went all in on Kawhi. They're like, look, this might be a 1-year rental, and it paid off. You know, they won a you know, an NBA title. And so I'm with you. It's a little early to make that, and I'm not trying to compare Kawhi and Pascal Siakam
Right.
in terms of talent, but yeah, I think you're right. I think they're probably a year away from, hey, let's take that next big step. Kind like you said, kind of see where this core of young guys is at in terms of skill level, talent, development, all that good stuff, and then you can kind of plug and chug. And I think next year, you know, there might be a couple more bigger names on the market as well that the Pacers could go after in trades, you know, with some expiring deals and stuff like that. So, like I'm with you though. I like the Pacers kind of putting their name in the hat and saying, hey, you know, we're here to try to contend. You know, I'm excited for what's to come because, you know, it's been a few years since the Pacers been in the playoffs. I fully expect them to be a playoff team this coming season. So the fact that they're kind of gearing up for that is exciting from a fan standpoint.
No, and you bring up a great point. This is something like Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons have always talked about on their pod. Like, it's just who's the next dude? Like, who's the next dude who's going to get pissed out there? And, you know, so right now, you know, it's obviously, you know, Damian Lillard who wants to get out, but, you know, they've talked about, you know, maybe it's going to be Giannis and, you know, Joel Embiid next. And it's like, who's after that? It's like, and who's after, and it could be like, you know, Pablo Banchero in Orlando, like who knows? Like, but this league has shown over the last 5 or 6 years that there's always going to be the next dude who wants out. Indy's probably never going to be a spot where I doubt we're going to have a spot where someone's like, I want out and I want to go to Indy only. I don't see that happening, but a lot of times, you know, Kyrie, I don't think wanted to go to Dallas, but it's like, that was where he ended up going. And now it's kind of like, that's what's going on there. I think that's an example of a team that made the wrong decision on the wrong guy. So let's not replicate that. But no, I'm with you that I think this is a good, like it at least sends out to the league, like, hey, we're thinking about this. We're looking at it. But yeah, this is where I would say, you know, you save the draft capital. Cause I also saw, like, I don't think this is even real, but like somebody on Twitter had like, you know, what if the Pacers went after like OG Anunoby? And then it was like, you know, 3 firsts. And it's like, I think we should be saving all that capital for somebody at a little higher echelon, because there's going to be another first team all NBA guy in probably next year that you're not even thinking of that's going to want out. And it'd be nice to be there to go for it, because while we're not a place where people are going to want to go, and be like, I want to push to go to Indiana. A lot of times when these stars want out, the number of teams that have the ability to get them is just not like, that's kind of Lillard's problem right now. It's like not a lot of teams need that, and not a lot of teams have what that Portland wants to get back. And it's like, I think Indy could be in a unique spot where it's like we would have the ability to go after some of those guys and get somebody like, Kawhi, like, and you bring up a great point with the Raptors. Like Kawhi didn't want to go to Toronto, but he did, and they won a title.
Yeah. And it's, if there ever is a time where Indy is attractive to free agents or big name people, it's Tyrese Halliburton is the reason why.
Yeah.
That could change a bit. Like guys want to play with playmakers that are going to get them the ball. And, Tyrese Halliburton is able to do that. Like he's a great creator for others. And so if you are kind of a top name guy and you're looking at a good fit, the Pacers could be that. Cause I mean, some NBA players have shown like they're not against going to a smaller market if they're able to win.
Right.
With some guys that have now gone to like Milwaukee, even Oklahoma City back in the day. Like, there's times where guys aren't just trying to go to the coasts, where Indy might become attractive, with kind of the roster that they're building.
No, you're dead on with that. Like Halliburton is a star. He gets guys the ball, and he's like kind of a pass first guard, which just aren't a lot of in this league. And it dovetails to the other point I was going to bring up. And this is all like, this is probably file under the means nothing category, but it's August 1st. We don't have a lot to talk about. Halliburton and Obi Toppin played in like a pro-am game here in Indy. And I read some stuff with Scott Agnes. If you don't follow him, it's great. The Fieldhouse Files has a great Substack, but he had a couple articles about that pro-am. And of course, lots of, crazy passes and dunks. And it's like how these guys do it, how NBA players do in a pro-am does not equate anything to the season. But I will say, like, it was a complete sellout. There was a little bit of buzz. Like I saw it, little pieces of here and there on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now. But it rose up to a level that I've never heard of an Indy, a Pacers pro-am before. And it does feel like there's a little bit of like bubbling buzz. And you saw Obi Toppin, who was kind of like just an afterthought in New York. And obviously I'm not keeping track of New York pro-am, so I have no idea what he's like, but Obi Toppin seems like a dude who's like super excited to be here, fired up. He hasn't even played a game and he's already doing like pro-am stuff around here. Halliburton seems to just be having a blast. Like it again, like we've talked about, it feels like something's going on, but it's like the place was packed. I haven't seen that before. It's just another little indicator of like there's something cool going on here, and people are definitely fired up. And I love seeing a guy like Obi Toppin, who I think has a lot of potential, who seemed to be just kind of a dead man walking in New York. Seems like he might be kind of lighting up playing here with Halliburton.
Yeah, and what's cool is that they're here to like be in the program. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not out training in LA or whatever. Yeah. They're here to be able to participate in something like that. So that to me is really cool. The Dizzy Runs pro-am, really, really great pro-am that Kyle Guy and Derek Grant put on up at Finch Creek. I think they played I think Obi and Tyrese Halliburton's team played against like Joey Brunk and Trace Jackson Davis. There's a lot of big name people that were playing in that pro-am. So it's an excellent I think it's on like Wednesday and Thursday nights. I think they got a couple more weeks. Check it out if you're in the Indy area for sure. Can't guarantee that, the Pacers max extension guy is going to be there every week, but there's always some good basketball players there playing and competing, and it's fun to watch. But yeah, in terms of what guys do in the pro-am versus, NBA readiness, I saw Jamal Crawford holds a pro-am, and it was somebody. Here's kind of my point being, I don't even remember the player who it was. It was somebody I don't recall. He was a rookie last year. He scored 83 and broke the pro-am's point record. So it's not always an indicator of how they'll do, but nonetheless, fun to watch.
Yeah, I know 100%. Like same thing why we're not even covering Summer League here. It's like, to me, Summer League it's like, if you do great in Summer League, it's like, well, then none of these guys you're playing against are going to be in the NBA, which is true. And if you do bad in Summer League, it's like, well, there's a long list of guys who sucked in Summer League who have been all NBA. And so it's like, there's really nothing to take from Summer League versus like, it's fun to watch guys play. But anyway, yeah. And a pro-am's like a level below Summer League.
100%. 100%.
Before we you had some bench thoughts or the coaching thoughts on what's been going on the Pacers bench.
Yeah. Ronald Norred, now with the Atlanta Hawks. He's kind of bounced around. Like he's trying to get to that first chair, as quick as possible in the NBA. Like it's funny. So in maybe 2011 or 2012, he was the head coach of Brownsburg High School. And since then he's been an NBA, he's been a assistant at the college level. He's been an NBA G League head coach, was then like a player development coach in the NBA and video coordinator, then worked his way up to, front of the bench as an assistant. I think now he's going to be Quinn Snyder's like top assistant with the Hawks or maybe second assistant with the Hawks. So he's working his way up. But so by him leaving the Pacers and heading to the Hawks, it opened up a seat on the Pacers front of the bench, which Jenny Busek has now moved from behind the bench to the front of the bench as one of the top assistants for the Pacers. So, really cool to see that. Obviously, Rick Carlisle, I almost said Rick Hightower, who's a former newscaster in Indianapolis. Rick Carlisle, has long been a proponent of Jenny Busek and what she's able to bring to a team, and now is showcasing her, at the front of the bench, which is kind of helping to spearhead, kind of normalcy of women coaching men in basketball, which is really cool to see for the Pacers. But obviously not just doing that for that. She knows the game and knows it very well. So cool to see that too on the Pacers front.
Yeah. Do you it got me thinking, like, Carlisle isn't going to be here forever. I mean, he's been his second term here. He's probably mid-60s or so. Do you it's weird because you're going to have a coaching change at some point during Halliburton's time here, assuming we get 10 or 12 years of Halliburton. Could you see this as a move of Carlisle trying to set up his successor off his own bench?
That's a good question, because when Carlisle first came here for his second stint, I kind of thought, all right, he's kind of getting up there in age. Like maybe this is a move where he starts getting some control of the team in some facet, maybe he becomes president of basketball operations or something at some point. And so possibly, I don't know what that looks like. I think, she would be like the third assistant, I guess, in terms of like hierarchy. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know what his plans are. Maybe he's Greg Popovich and, everybody thinks they're going to be out of there. Then they sign a 5-year contract at 74 because they get the top talent in the NBA draft. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to follow. But I have thought about that myself.
Yeah. And like you said, sometimes it's hard to have that top job and give it up. And then sometimes it's like, this isn't really like college where, like Krzyzewski gets to pick his successor.
100%. But
yeah,
it's fun to talk about on August 1st.
I know. So, I mean, the next two things coming up is we'll have the schedule release. We'll definitely do something around that. But I'll kind of end with this, just as we looking at the season ahead, knowing nothing, not knowing who we're playing, what is your expectation for this season? And I'll leave it at that. What's kind of like a high level expectation you're hoping for this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said, I think the Pacers are a playoff team. And I think I would be satisfied like if they make it to like the real playoffs for what's that's worth. Getting out of the play-in games into like an actual series. To me, I think that's obviously a step in the right direction, and would mean that they played some good basketball in the regular season, and then, in the playoffs, anything can happen. So that's kind of my expectation, like where I would like to see them. It obviously would be great to see them 6 seed or better so that they don't even have to worry about playing stuff. But, I don't want to get too crazy with my expectations because they are still young. They do still have some talent deficiencies in certain areas and things like that. And, as much as you don't want to think about it, it was showcased last year that they are one Tyrese Halliburton injury away from being really bad. And so, kind of keeping that in mind too, that you do have those bumps and bruises throughout the way. But I think they're a playoff team.
I agree. I mean, I look at it, I would love in an ideal situation, you have a similar season to what the Cavs had, where you just really catch people by surprise. You have a great year. How it ended for them is maybe not how I'd want to get swept out by the Knicks in the playoffs, or maybe they won one game, but they didn't look good in the playoffs. But like that would be a great regular season, is just being like, oh, like we are here and we're legit. As I look at, Pacers finished 11th last year. I think we've done some of this before, but like the teams below them, the Wizards, the Magic, the Hornets, the Pistons. The Magic is the only team that I would be slightly concerned about jumping them. I think the other three teams are not. And I'm with you. I think, Pacers should make it to the play-in game. I'd love to see them. I think sixth place and above is like the real playoffs. For them to get there, I don't think it's out of the question, but it's like of the teams they'd have to jump. We'll just talk it through now. Like the Bulls were ahead of them. I think they could jump the Bulls. The Raptors are ahead of them. I think they could jump the Raptors because the Raptors could also be moving Siakam and cutting ties. I'm not sure they could get ahead of the Heat. Oh, the Heat really aren't a regular season team, so it's. I'm not sure they're better than the Heat. I can see them jumping the Heat. The Hawks, I don't know. I don't see why not. I'm not going to call it out. And then the Nets and the Knicks. The Pacers would need to have a great season to get that done, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. That's as I look at things, and again, like you said, Halliburton has to be healthy for all this to make sense. Halliburton gets injured, and I think you just almost have to throw the year away, and maybe you just try and tank one more time. But barring that, I do think it's possible to get in that 6th seed. I think that should be like kind of a realistic expectation for the year. So that's kind of what at this point in August, as I start looking at the season, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then for growth perspective, to me, I think you want to see a step up from Halliburton, but to me, the key is really Mathurin. Like if Ben Mathurin can become, this team's, Jalen Brown kind of like really a very close number 2, who's also, bordering on all NBA. That's what this team needs, because if he doesn't do that, it's not the end of the world, and that's fine, but it means that you've got to find that somewhere else. If Mathurin can become that, it makes this all a lot easier. Because you look at like just north of us, the Bucks, like you have, and I'm not comparing Giannis to Halliburton, but it's like they had Giannis and couldn't get it done. And then it's like that Drew Holiday trade got it done. Like Drew is as important to that team as Giannis, as crazy as that is, but you need a guy like that. They had to go get him. They weren't able to develop their own, and they basically traded away everything for that. And now they are stuck. Yeah.
If Mathurin turns into Jalen Brown, he too can someday be the highest paid player in NBA history.
It's wild, but we can wrap up with like larger NBA talk. Like it's wild, but it's like that's what this league is. And like when you see him making 70 million a year in year 7, it's like on the surface, like that's nuts. It's like, but it's still the same percentage of the cap, and guys can get pissed, and you can be like, well, Jalen Brown's like not worth more than LeBron. Like he's not, but it's like he signed the contract at the right time. And guess what? In 2 years, the next guy on third team All NBA is going to get a larger deal than that. Like that's just the way it goes.
100%. Yeah. And then, you look at, I remember when Mike Conley signed that like iconic deal and he became the highest paid player in NBA history. It was like, what? Like how could that happen? And then now you look at his deal and you're like, oh, like that's not even that much.
Where I do think it's interesting, and it's been again, I'll reference like Bill Simmons on his podcast is really good. They've gone deep into this new contract and this new CBA and the apron stuff. It's going to be really interesting because, like, on one hand, it's like, all right, he's worth it, and like that's all that, but it's like the Celtics and the Bucks are in really uncharted territory here. Where if you go look at their balance sheet, and the Celtics are now in a way tougher spot, this puts them. They're going to be spending $100 to $105 million on Tatum and Brown, and the cap is like 140 or something, and I just don't. I'm not sure how much the players thought about this when they signed this CBA, that it's like you have this ability to give these super maxes, and obviously players who are eligible for them are going to get them, and they should. But if you have two dudes who are super max, like unless your team's going to go into the apron, you're not going to be able to sign anybody else. Like, you're talking about, it is nothing but like league minimum guys. And the apron thing, it's not like it used to be where you just pay a tax and like we're moving on. Like, you lose the ability to do buyout guys. You start losing draft picks. Like, you lose the ability to have any flexibility in trades. And so basically it's like you're stuck with like a bunch of Wes Matthews, not picking on guys, like just guys who are just, 1-2 million guys, and you got to fill in around that. It's going to be really interesting. And the Bucks are in a similar spot. Like, they have Giannis, they have Drew Holiday, they have 2 massive contracts, and they just, by re-signing Brook Lopez, like, they are locking themselves into this team. And I got a buddy who's a Bucks fan, and he's like, "Oh, they'll be able to figure out." I was like, no, like, they're not going to be able to make any moves, like not any moves that make any sense. Like, there's no longer going to be like, we'll just buy out, like we'll get Kevin Love at the dedeadline. Like, I don't think you can do that when you're in the second apron. There's just a lot of shit. Like, I just don't think people realize you can't do. So and being a team in the East who's not in that spot, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to teams like the Bucks and the Celtics with those deals.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Suns roster, like it is so top heavy in terms of,
Yes.
you got Durant, Beal, Booker, Ayton, and then it's like their next highest paid player is Torrey Craig. They've got Bol, Keita Bates-Diop, Josh Okogie, Damian Lee, Drew Eubanks. Like, these are guys that are going to have to play a vital role on their second team. And, that's kind of what the Suns got caught with their pants down last year a little bit, because they didn't have any depth. And then, they went out and got Bradley Beal, and their depth's going to be even worse. I mean, they're going to be very, very top heavy, and see how it plays out. But to me, that's tough. I mean, that's a tough place to be. I mean, depth is super, super important, especially when you grind through an 82 game season and into the playoffs, where, you end up playing 100+ games. I don't know. I'm with you. I'm very intrigued by the apron stuff and how this is going to affect teams moving forward.
Well, I think it's just going to become, you're going to have stars, and then you're going to have guys making, I think the mid-level guys, like a world where TJ McConnell type makes $9 million, which is kind of what he's valued at now and what he should be being paid. I think roles like that, again, not TJ, but like roles like that are just going to be gone. I think that's going to become a $2 million a year salary, just because teams, I mean, the Celtics are a prime example. I think like next year, the cap is like projected at 140. And they're going to be paying $100 million to 2 dudes. So it's like, you got $40 million to fill 10 other spots. That breaks down to $4 million a guy. Like, it's just the way it does. Unless you get one other guy at like 12 million, then it breaks down to even less. And so I think the world of like a Brook Lopez getting 20 million a year are just going to be gone. Like, I just don't see those contracts happening. I'm not sure people have figured that out. And like the players, large term, like they'll still be getting the same amount, but it's going to be even more for the best players. And then I think you're going to be in the spot where it's like every team is going to have a dude. And this is going to be the Pacers. What they're going to have to figure out over the next 3 to 4 years is like, Halliburton's our dude. Great. He gets the max, done. The question now is like, who's your second dude? And is your second dude worthy of that? And that's kind of like the Celtics were, I think this is why the Celtics took so long signing Jalen Brown to that extension, is they're kind of the first ones to be like, all right, is this going to be our dude? Like, is this our number 2 dude? Because obviously Tatum is their dude. Is your number 2 guy, is he worth this? Is he ready for this? Should we, like, you have to start figuring it out, because now it's like they are locked in. Like, this is their team. And now that they signed him, not a lot of teams can, like, even if the Pacers wanted Jalen Brown tomorrow, like, I don't think they'd have the capital to put him in there, or even something we'd be in the same spot they'd be in. So it's like, I think that's going to be the question for all these teams moving forward is your number 2 worthy of that contract?
I agree. And it's going to be, it's going to be fun to play out. I do think the Pacers are in a great spot from a financial health perspective, to where they can kind of adjust with the market, I think, and they've got some flexibility to be able to do that, where some teams are going to be completely hamstrung.
Yep. Well, they got, I don't want to say lucky, but they got lucky in that, where the Celtics really got hurt, in my opinion, is Jalen Brown made that 3rd-team All-NBA, which that raised, like, again, this is what people maybe who aren't paying close enough attention, not saying I'm deep into it either, but it's like that allowed this, that as part of the CBA kicked up his contract to another level where he had to he was eligible for the Super Max, means he was going to get it. Whereas Halliburton got his max deal, but he was not getting the Super Max. And that makes a difference. Like, that makes a huge difference. And that's where the Celtics, like, it's great to have 2 dudes who are all NBA, But the trouble is when they're both Super Max eligible, now that's a huge amount of your cap. And the second apron, the apron and the second apron stuff. Again, if you don't know what we're talking about, just go check it out. I'm not going to go deep into it, but it's really like it used to be. You would just, teams like the Warriors would just pay a tax. Like, we'll pay another $100 million. Who cares? We'll sell some more luxury boxes. The second apron stuff, you're over the cap. Like, there's real penalties on what you can do and how you can spend and what trades you're able to make. And so anyway, I think the Pacers are in a good spot because they signed Halliburton before he was all NBA. Which gives them some more flexibility. And that's why, again, the Mathurin thing becomes so important, because if he can get to that level in the next year or two, where you look at it and you're like, we think if he gets better, and then in the 2024-2025 season, you're like, this guy's really going to be something. If you can get him that extension before he makes any all NBA team, it's going to lean. You can have those, you could have Halliburton, you could have Mathurin, and you might have enough for another $20 million a year guy. And then you fill it out after that. And that would give you that advantage. Like, I think that's the sweet spot that teams are going to need to try and be in. At least, like you said, the Pacers are in that spot right now, but you need Mathurin and all them to get better.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it, though. I think another funny thing about the Pacers, I think the 2018 or 2019 draft class, whatever it is, we didn't have a draft pick. And now we have like 5 guys from that draft class on our team. You've got Halliburton and Nesmith and Smith and Toppin, like tons of dudes from that draft class are now on the Pacers, and we didn't have a draft pick that year.
Well, no, it's a great point. And it's also, we had to trade some stuff to get that, but like we kind of got Obi Toppin for nothing, like two second round picks. And he might turn out to be okay. Like, who knows? But I do like, it feels like we're zagging a little bit, where it's like, instead of like, we got Jalen Smith for nothing too. I think just one second rounder or something. The Suns were like just trying to get rid of him. It's like, again, oh, good.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, his scenario was bizarre because like they didn't pick up his team option, which like is unheard of for a lottery pick, and then it kind of, everybody thought I was gonna screw the Pacers over, but then he took a shorter deal with the Pacers just because of how much success he had with them previously. Like, yeah, it's I'm with you though. I think the Pacers have made several sound moves to kind of build up some collateral on their roster.
Well, I think they might be trying to zag here, which is, everyone's trying to get the top 5 or 6 picks, which, it'd be great. And then it's like, once guys are, if they sign that top pick and they're fantastic, and then, you got to give them that max. Like, that's one way to go about it. And that's not saying that's not a great way to go, but, for Pacers, a team that haven't had a lot of lottery picks and not a lot of lottery success, like, this is another way, is like, can we get guys who used to have that pedigree, were top picks, a couple of years, like maybe the scenario is not right, and then get him. It's like, it's the Jermaine O'Neal thing. Like, you pick up a distressed asset. And it seems like the Pacers are doing a lot of that. Like, Obi Toppin, Jalen Smith, like, we're getting half of that draft class. And, that's, I think we talked about in the last pod, is like, we have like half the lottery from that draft. And so it's an interesting way to zag. And there is like, you look at like what, it was a lot to give up, and he was the number 1 pick. But like, Markelle Fultz is a solid player in Orlando. Like, he really is. Like, there's a lot of baggage there, and everybody's like, I don't know, but it's like, he's a solid player. The Magic are doing that too. So it does feel like maybe the Pacers are onto something here, where it's like, let's give it 2 or 3 years, revisit the draft, and look for the assets that are distressed. And obviously, like the Chet Holmgrens and those types, well, we'll see if he can play, but the high level guys who are doing well, they're not going to be traded, but there's some distressed assets would be interesting. Last thing, Chet Holmgren. Somebody else talked about this, but I do, if you look at rookie of the year future bets, just from an odds perspective, he's plus 380 right now on FanDuel. To me, that's a really interesting bet, because yes, I think Victor is a very good shot at winning. He's also like minus 110 or something. So you're paying extra. Like, I got Chet and Scoot. I think Scoot was like plus 480 or something. But Chet, it's like, that's the number 1 pick from last year. Like, last year, before he got injured, he was negative odds for rookie of the year. He's a year older than everybody else. He's had a year of seasoning. Like, yes, maybe he isn't healthy, but on the flip side, it's like, if you're telling me like, well, I don't know if he can stay healthy, it's like, well, then I don't know if Victor can stay healthy. Like, these are all tall dudes. Like, and if we're banking on injury, I get for the basically way better odds, I get Scoot and Shet together. So that's my gambling talk of the day. Like those were my two future picks. I threw down $25 on each Scoot and Shet for future rookie of the year. So I'm happy with that from an odds perspective.
I'm intrigued to follow that throughout the season. We can see how the odds are shifting and ebbing and flowing either in your favor or not. But I think it's great value. I mean, I'm a guy who likes to get more value for my money when I'm gambling. I like to look at the underdogs, and that's why I don't gamble for a living, because it probably isn't a sound strategy. But nonetheless, it makes it fun.
All right, real quick, while I got you then. So the odds for for MVP for next year, and then we'll officially wrap up. I'm such a homer, like we're IU fans. Like I put on like Michael Penix to win the Heisman like 3 years ago. I stood by that for a while. That was fun. I'm scrolling down, like Tyrese Halliburton is plus 16,000 to 1 to win the I'm not going to bet that, but here's where I landed for for MVP next year. Jokic is the favorite, the odds on favorite at plus, like, I'm just going to go off of FanDuel odds just so you could, but like he's plus 430. I just don't see Jokic winning 4 and 5 years. Or no, he didn't win it last year.
3 and 4.
Sorry. It'd be 3 and 4. I'm not sure. I think that's partially why he didn't win. He probably should have won MVP, but it's like that would have been 3 in a row. That puts him in like the Bird category, and like he hadn't won a title up to that point. So maybe he does get 3 and 4 after winning a title. But there gets to be voting fatigue. There just is, and it's like he almost won it last year, so it's like he's in that category anyway. Giannis, I think, is in a similar boat. I think Giannis, having been like basically swept out of the playoffs last year, although he didn't play, I think there's fatigue there. I think Luka Doncic, I'm going down the list here. I think Dallas is going to be an absolute fucking mess. So I just not going to bet
that'll
on
be a
them.
train wreck.
Yeah. Embiid won last year. I don't see that. Tatum, maybe. Durant, I don't think so. Steph Curry, I think you're gonna be good. I'm not sure, but you get to like Devin Booker at plus 1,700. Like that's interesting. I put my money. Here's where I put my money. I'm going down. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is up there. I think that's not going to happen. Damian Lillard, I'm not sure what team he's going to be on. Here's my Anthony Davis, 2,900 to 1. Here's my thought: is that the Lakers are always going to get a lot of pub. I don't think that LeBron has an MVP season in him. But I think if he plays well, and then if Anthony Davis can stay healthy, he can be great. And if they are in like the 5 seed, they're going to get a ton of attention. Everyone's going to be looking at it. And I think all the guys above, I think there's reasons why, just from a like kind of narrative point of view, people wouldn't want to vote for them. Like, again, Embiid's plus 700 to 1. It's like that'd be back-to-back MVPs. Like those things really matter. 3 out of 4 really matter. Like the Giannis thing. Like, there's a lot of stories that could. It's like, I don't know. I look at the AD, I look at the odds. Like that's my thought for futures MVP.
That's an interesting one. Hey,
and I really don't like AD as a player. I hate that I'm looking at it that way.
Plus 2,700 odds. I mean, I like the logic. I just don't know that I don't know that he stays healthy, because now you have to win MVP, you have to play a certain amount of games or something, right?
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah. Probably not.
That's another one. We'll earmark these, and we'll follow them as the year goes on and see. I feel like I got to come to the next pod with mine, so that
totally caught you off guard.
One of us accountable.
Well, next time. So next pod, we'll come to this. I totally caught you off guard with this, and it'll be fun in January when both Chet is out for the year and AD's played 5 games, and it's like, hey, how are those picks going for you? And it's like, yeah, not ideal.
It's all right. We just place our mid-season bets then, and we go from there.
Yeah, you pick it up from there and just bet on Jokic and just go from there.
Do they have odds to win the preseason tournament, or not the in-season tournament?
Oh, we haven't talked about that. Give me your thoughts on the in-season tournament while I pull up the odds for that.
I think it's interesting the way they did it. I thought they just used divisions and go from there, but how they tiered it, like based off of last year's win totals. I actually think the Pacers got a decent draw with their like in-season tournament division. I'm intrigued. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I don't know if it'll just be something that's so foreign that it's just like, nah, this isn't catching on. But I think it'll be fun to like have those nights in the NBA where, you kind of have your NFL fix like on Sunday, Monday, Thursday. And then if there's NBA games on like Tuesday or Wednesday in the fall, and it's like those nights where they're in season games, like I could see there's some buzz there. So, I think it's hats off to the NBA for trying to be creative. I don't know what it'll look like or how it will take, but I don't see the downside of it either. Because it's games that are already going to be played anyway. So like, let's see if we can kind of make it more exciting. Like, I don't hate that.
Yeah, there are odds. It's very like the Celtics are plus 700, Nuggets are plus 950, the Bucks, the Suns, the Warriors, the Cavs. So it's pretty much like just title odds are pretty similar. And you're right. I like our bracket. I'm with you. I like it. All the talk of the tournament had always been like, I always thought it was going to be like just, everyone plays in a tournament off on the side. I do like how the pod games are basically just normal games. So you're kind of keeping the regular season. I like that. I like that the four teams go to Vegas, or the 6 teams or whatever, that the pod winners go to Vegas, play kind of their own thing. I like that. I just come back to like, I'm not sure what you're playing for. Right. Like, players get more money. It's like, that's awesome. Great. Like, it would have been cool if it's like you get another first round pick or something. It's like the last pick in the first round, or like, the first pick after the lottery is just like the team that won the in-season tournament gets that pick. Or something else. Like, I know this works in soccer. We should talk to Galen, who's a much bigger soccer fan than us, or friends. I have a lot of friends who are soccer fans. I'm not big into soccer. Like, I think that's also just like it's just a history thing. It's been going on for years, so it matters. That's my only thing is like, does anybody really care? But I like how it's structured. I like the timing of it, because it kind of, it reminds people like, oh yeah, basketball's starting. It kind of gets you that window right before Christmas. It's early. But that was my only thought, is like, it's really early in the season, because like, Christmas has always kind of been like when the NBA kind of starts for the average fan. But the season doesn't start until the end of October normally, and it's like these games are happening in November, and then it's like happens like this is like the first like 5 weeks of the season. It's like you're already getting to figure out who's in the mid-season. It's not a mid-season tournament. It's almost like the first third tournament. That was my only thing. It's like the timing seemed really early in the season.
It's like if Indiana won the preseason NIT, or like the battle for Atlantis, or it's like, yeah, it's cool if you win it. Like, it's not going to make or break your season. It's, but it gives you a high for, a couple days of like, hey, we might have something here. That's kind of how I'm envisioning it and looking at it.
I hear you. And I mean, it's one game playoff. And when you get to Vegas, I like all that. I wish there was like more stakes that they could have added to it. And then maybe they will over time, but I'll give the NBA credit, man. I like it. Like, it's you're trying something new. This is the first major league to do something like this in the US. And like, I don't think that was brought up enough, as everybody's kind of like, I don't know, like what's playing for, like all the stuff that we're complaining about, but it's like, or I'm complaining about, but it's like, hey, the NFL's not doing this. Like, everyone's just adding, playoff teams. Like, that's not a big deal. Like, this is unique for sports. And so people might just be like, oh, what are they playing for? It's like, well, they're trying something new. Like, the NBA is trying some new stuff, and I like it. So I'm with you. I think it'll be cool. And, I agree too. When you look at our bracket, the East A, need to have better names for that. The Hawks, the Cavs, the Pistons, the Pacers, the Sixers. Like, I mean, the Cavs are going to be good. And the Sixers will be good, but it's like, they're not going to be awesome. And who knows the Sixers? Like, Harden may not be playing, and B might be wanting a trade. Right. And again, we're not going to get a bracket where not, you don't play the Celtics. You're not in the same bracket with the Bucks. Like, as all things go, it's not a bad bracket for the Pacers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's as good as you could have gotten the way that things are tiered for this season.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, good talk with you. Glad we got something on the record. And let's. I think the schedule gets released sometime in August, like mid to late August. So when that comes out, we can look at it, and over under on. I say we get 3 national TV games. I'm going under. That's always a safe bet. And definitely 2 of them will be flexed. So, all right. Great times for Tony. This is Scott. I want to thank you all for listening. Right Up Meridian podcast, signing off.